How to hold your customers' attention. That's a question most of us have pondered at some stage, whether it's designing a piece of collateral or a presentation or even writing an email. And if you haven't been pondering it, that could be a problem because getting their attention is one thing, keeping it is another. It's only by staving off boredom and warding off distraction that we can move our customers towards clicking, calling, or buying. Hi, I'm Bri Williams, the Behaviour Changer. I work with businesses to get better results using behavioural science. In this video, I'm going to share 5 ways to hold your customers' attention, along with 3 mistakes to avoid while doing so. Let's get started. The grow phase of attention. When it comes to customer attention, there are 3 stages: get, grow, and go. Get is about capturing their interest, and go is about moving them to action. Grow happens in the middle. It's about deepening their curiosity so they absorb what you are sharing. We want them to stick around long enough to be convinced to do what we would like them to do. Now, the duration of the grow phase will depend on how you're engaging with your audience. An email is different to a presentation or a social media post, for example. In general, the longer this phase, the more you have to work to keep them interested. I'm sure you'll agree that many movies overstay their welcome and diminish their audience's experience as a result. The good news is that as long as we keep them curious, they will be willing to hear what we have to say. Here are my 5 ways to hold and grow attention. Number 1, entertain. In all my hours of research on this topic, I kept coming back to one word that researchers themselves did not use: entertain. Not in the modern sense of the word entertain, which feels lightweight, but in the true sense of the word. Because to entertain is to keep someone in a certain frame of mind. That's our objective. Keeping them in a frame of mind that makes them more likely to move towards clicking, calling, or buying. So, how do we do that? Let's start with 3 things we shouldn't do if we want to entertain them. First, we should avoid using cliched images and content. According to neuroscientist Carmen Simon, the fastest way to bore your audience in a presentation or pitch is to use cliches. I'd say the same goes for your marketing collateral and website. That's because our brains are predictive pattern-making machines. As soon as your customer sees something they've seen 100 times before, their brains will think they know everything they need to know and shut off. That's one of the dangers of relying on AI-generated content, by the way. It's largely a regurgitation of what's already been written. Recycled content, albeit newly packaged, is not the way you entertain your customers. The second thing we shouldn't do is overload them. Communicating too many messages at the same time thwarts any chance they'll be able to absorb them. For example, do not talk while they are reading something. When pitching for business or giving a keynote, too many presenters talk while showing a slide of text on screen. While this seems like it should be okay, you're engaging 2 distinct senses, hearing and sight, you're actually jamming these sensory pipelines. That's because when people read, they recite words to themselves, making it an auditory rather than visual process. A bottleneck forms as what they hear and what they read and mentally recite compete for attention. This increases the odds they will get tired of the internal bun fight and will simply tune out. And third, don't drag things out unnecessarily. I once went to a car dealership to test drive a car, but the salesperson took so long chatting to me that I was turned off the vehicle before I even turned on the ignition. People resent their time being wasted, so don't take longer than you need to. Okay, so to entertain, we need to avoid cliches, overloading them, and burning time. Now let's talk about how to keep them entertained. Starting with tension. If there's no tension, there's no curiosity. See, even by making a statement like that, I'm using tension to engage you. This is our second way to grow attention. Tension is the mild anxiety we feel when there's a gap between what we know and what we want to know. It's uncomfortable, and that's stimulating as a result. TV programs use it all the time. If you're around my age, you might remember a show called Moonlighting, which starred Sybil Shepherd and Bruce Willis as private investigators. The sparring and sexual tension kept us hooked right up until the end of the third season, when the relationship was consummated. The show was never quite as interesting after the unresolved sexual tension was, well, resolved. People will stay interested if they stay curious. And to do that, there are 4 specific ingredients. It needs to be 1, something they don't already know, but 2, want to know. This creates an information gap, tension, that they're motivated to fill. And the third ingredient, they need to be certain that they will get an answer. Otherwise, why bother? And the fourth ingredient, uncertain about what that answer will be. For example, in my keynotes about behavioural science, I start with examples of customer behaviour that contravenes our usual approaches to business. This explains why we don't get the results we expect and creates an appetite for learning what to do differently. I then spend the rest of the presentation revealing how behaviour can be more effectively influenced, giving them a piece of the puzzle at a time. Number 3, variation. The third of 5 ways we can entertain people and hold their attention is to create variation in our communication style. People get bored very quickly, and this happens not only when there's a lack of stimulating content, but when there's too much. By that I mean, if we go on too long at one level, even if that's frenetic and multisensory, people become habituated. Once they're habituated, once they're comfortable that they know what's happening, they pay less attention. For example, think of an action sequence in a movie. Explosions, car chases, and fight scenes should entertain us, but if it goes on too long, it becomes tiresome. The lesson is variation. Sometimes quiet, sometimes loud, sometimes busy, sometimes calm. It's contrast that creates interest. When creating a presentation, for example, vary the rhythm of your slides. Hold longer on early slides before picking up the pace to create urgency around your call to action. In a document, use images, subheadings, and formatting like bolding and highlighting to break up the density of text and allow their brain to rest. Pull quotes, breakout boxes of text, are another excellent way to keep them interested. Researchers have found the best pull quotes use direct quotes from people, simple sentences and simple language, personal pronouns like I, me, and you, verbs because they give a sense of something happening, and present rather than past tense. And in your writing, whether that's an email or document, write sentences of varying length and intensity. American writer Gary Provost explains it best in this quote. This sentence has 5 words. Here are 5 more words. 5-word sentences are fine, but several together become monotonous. Listen to what is happening. The writing is getting boring. The sound of it drones. It's like a stuck record. The ear demands some variety. Now listen. I vary the sentence length and I create music. Music. The writing sings. It has a pleasant rhythm, a lilt, a harmony. I use short sentences, and I use sentences of medium length. And sometimes, when I'm certain the reader is rested, I will engage him with a sentence of considerable length, a sentence that burns with energy and builds with all the impetus of a crescendo. The roll of drums, the crash of cymbals, sounds that say, listen to this, it is important. So write with a combination of short, medium, and long sentences. Create a sound that pleases the reader's ear. Don't just write words, write music. Active. Making people work for it is the fourth way we can hold their attention. In other words, making them an active participant rather than a passive bystander. Here are a few ideas on how. Encourage them to take physical notes by hand. This activates multiple regions of the brain and helps them ingest your message. Ask questions. Posing rhetorical or direct questions as you go will keep them thinking about their reaction to what you are sharing. It helps to keep them with you. Leave them to solve some of the puzzle. Here's an example of that being used in a marketing billboard by Cancer Research UK. This so-called generation effect is about stimulating people's natural desire to generate an answer and can make communications more memorable. Now, to our fifth and final method to grow attention. Progress. If you're walking through a desert, knowing you are almost at the oasis is more motivating than having no idea. So it is with customers. Progress markers are a great way of holding their attention so they keep moving forward with you. So to communicate progress, make the end goal clear. When people don't know when something will be over, when our goal will be achieved, it becomes uncomfortable and distracting. It feels like waiting for a bus without knowing whether it will actually arrive. Rather than enjoy the experience by reading a book or scrolling our phone, we get agitated and second guess our decision to wait for the bus at all. That is not the state of mind we want our customers in. Instead, be sure to give them an end goal, something to move towards. Here's an example. Researchers monitored performance of elite cyclists who undertook two 20-kilometre time trials. In one trial, they were told how much further they had to ride, and in another, that information was withheld. When they didn't know how close they were to finishing, they tended to conserve energy. They didn't push as hard. When they knew they only had 2 kilometres left to go, they were faster by 2 minutes. This is the goal gradient effect. We speed up when we get closer to the end. Give them a jump start. I've mentioned completion bias in other Just Do This lessons. It's our tendency to complete something if we're already underway. For example, pre-stamping a cafe's loyalty card with a couple of coffees will make it more likely a customer will return to complete the card. The opportunity is to signal to your customer that they are already further along than they may realise. Instead of indicating they're at step 1, look to recognise the work they've already undertaken to get there. So if I'm a financial planner, instead of telling people our first appointment is the first step, I can tell them by simply making the inquiry they've already completed step 1. The next step is to have our first appointment. Now, while I'd love to share with you the fifth and final method to grow your customers' attention, that information is available exclusively to Just Do This members. Just Do This is my small business program that shows you exactly what to do to optimize every aspect of your business using behavioural science. Find out more at briwilliams.com.